The transcendent universe is in constant motion, recognizing the great vast electromagnetic field around us in its current existence of eons and ages of time. Wow, the amazement of time itself. Is time simply the greatest illusion on earth? You see, time has been noted to be the indefinite progress of events that is connected as a whole with past, present, and future time. You see, time itself is simply a measurement that signifies everything in existence of the world within and around us. If we look at historical depictions of time, it is said that time really became in existence during the Great Babylonian and ancient Egyptian timelines around at least 5,000 years ago, when they simply used time for the measurement of their public events through sundials. You see, during this great Egyptian timeline, around 1500 BC, it is said that time was simply created to measure, the sun dust, water, and sand, and then, of course, there became a invention of clocks. And as the discoveries of the Earth was said to be noted to rotate around the Earth's orbit and the sun, if you look at the symbolic nature of the clock itself, you will see how the clock is symbolic in representing the Earth moving around its axis in our greater universe. And so then we simply you started using our clock system to measure time, of course, to go forth and take track and measure our daily activities. But we shall delve deeper into the existence of time, into seeing the significance of the great shift that we're going through, and why it was created, where we are now, and where we are going forward into the progress of this measurement of time in understanding the greater universe. You see, if we look at this great depiction of time itself in our 3D dimensional world, we see that, based on its primitive inventions, of simply connecting to the sun and connecting to the wider universe once we have noted that the earth itself spins on its axis, and there is more outside of the earth, and that we are simply not alone in this divine universe. We developed this system of time to simply track our daily activities. Now, as we've progressed into our great evolution of civilizations, we see that, time was simply created to just track the progress of time. But as we may go forward and delve deeper, we see that this argument will show us that time itself is not linear. And if we begin to dispel time, we will see that with the greater connection with the greater universe and the energy field around us, that, time is simply just a measurement that can be broken down into past, present, and future timelines. Now, let's just delve back as we see upon its invention, time, into ancient times, or simply just trying to track our daily activities as civilizations began to progress. What does that mean? We simply know that upon the sun rising, we have used this as a measurement to say that, okay, it's time to get up, it's the morning time, it's time to wake up and progress into day-to-day activities of work and just whatever um, events that we have planned for the day. Now, we also have a calendar system that has been broken down into months, and if we go further and further, it has developed into years. And so, if we look at the our current stage of time, we'll see that we are now in the year 2023. Now, we of course can go back to great Mayan teachings that has, through their own, inventions and, connections to the greater galactic universe, they have seen that, the earth will go through a great shift and transition. And based on their mathematical calculations, they of course went and said that time in our 3D dimensional world would be in 2012. But of course, the year 2012, we had, shifts going on based on the planetary alignments and, stuff happening outside of our multi-universe. But within the earth itself, we didn't begin to see that great shift and transformation until we recognized that everything happening outside in our greater universe is now connected to our present state of time. Once we had that great zero-pointed shift during the Great Conjunction in 2020, which of course, as we begin to reflect, we see that that was of course the big shift that the great Mayans were talking about, the ancient Mayans, that once we had been zero-pointed into a state where the alignment of Saturn, that Saturn itself represents Cronus, the Lord of Time, and of course Jupiter, the great planet of expansion, the gas giant that wants us to move forward in our evolution, came at a stage of a 0 point. Now, would we then say that time has stopped? Now, in our present state, what we have to see is that this greatest illusion of time was simply developed just for us in our day-to-day activities to understand time. But what we are beginning to see is that, according to quantum physics, time itself equals energy. And as we know, we live in a great electromagnetic energy field. Albert Einstein himself discovered that energy equals mc squared, which simply goes on to note that energy equals mass and matter. That is simply not continuous. So, in other words, if we take a symbolic representation of the time system as, an hourglass, we will see that if we place, the sand into the hourglass, of course, if we measure it based on our clock system, we may see that, it may take about an hour, depending on the mass, which is important, of this sand particles. And so we begin to equate it with this mathematical equation of time. Now, time is simply the greatest illusion on earth. Now, where I want to take this great topic and debate is to show you that, of course, we have been living in a stage where, based on our current timelines, not just our day-to-day activities, we expect everything to happen within a certain time. We have, certain things that we want to accomplish, stuff that we want to finish. And for many who have been living in this limited three-dimension of the world, they have simply just revolved around this time perspective that has taught them that, wow, things are supposed to happen within a certain time. And when things don't happen within that time, as I go back to this great, example of the Mayans predicting that the earth would shift in 2012, but in our current shifted in the year 2020, 8 years later than prediction. So this is just to show time being the measurement of the past, the present, and the future that's taking us forward into a stage, into our evolutionary progress. And we see that so many different events is happening. The planets are shifting, you know, we ourselves are progressing as humanity. We ourselves are beginning to see, you know, as we go through this great shift that we are awakening. So of course, our past timeline, that this may not be the first time that we have incarnated on this earth. And for many of us, we are beginning to see that, wow, we are connecting to the great quantum field that shows us that we are energy beings. And time itself is not linear, meaning that it's not straight, it's not like fixed. It is in constant, you know, movement based on the mass, I would say. If we go scientifically, you know, mass within us, which means that we could think of it on a level of just our emotional beingness, our mental, our physical, and you know, and then connecting it to the greater wider universe. So the point of this is to show us that we are connected to a greater multi-universe in a way that we are moving and connecting into a quantum field of existence. So we are not to say that if something don't happen by a certain time that we continue to remain in low vibrational state. Every single moment, you know, and energy that we go forth and use, we are of course evolving. So if let's say, you know, if we just have something where, you know, something is not in motion. Let's say you place a ball, you know, in a round container and that ball is just standing there. It still equals mass, but little by little, that ball, if you were to study it on a quantum level, you will see that its discrete particles within it are still kind of moving and maybe its mass may be greater depending on the environment around it, whether there's other winds, you know, whether, you know, it's just picking up on the energy field around it. So we are not to just look at it from a 3D dimensional time perspective. We are to see that, wow, time is an amazing feature used as a form of measurement. So as we go forward and progress with this time system that we have always known during our 3D era, we begin to see this great shift as we begin to evolve that the planetary alignments that it's going forward is showing us that our Earth itself in this co-creation process has moved and already shifted into a 4D dimensional field. Now, as we go back into just relating it to quantum time and quantum physics, we see that the 4D field, which shows the representation of time, you know, as we know in our measurements itself, length, width, and height, and time is all included within this 4D dimensional period. Now, when we correlate what 4D dimensional timelines mean, we of course see that the 4D world as we awaken simply showed us that, wow, this 3D timeline has been so almost like fixed and constant. You know, we generally just gravitated towards a clock system and to say it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock, it's 4 o'clock. It's the month of January, February, March, April, May. You know, we're in the year 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. You see, everything was sequential and linear And if we just look at mathematics, of course, mathematics was a great subject matter that, we all had to learn in school. And many, I always had the imagination that, mathematical equation was always, related to everything around it, especially as we now look at quantum physics. But, for us, maybe before doing all of these algebraic, you know, equation made no sense to us. But if we now look at the quantum field, we will just see how this equates to just connecting us to the multi-universe, that it's not so linear. So when we break it down and take it into the present aspect of our lives, we begin to see that if something don't happen during an expectation, you expect it to happen right here, right now. Okay, you maybe you wanna have this lifestyle where you wanna acquire certain material possessions by a certain time, or you wanna finish a project by a certain time, or you just have the expectation that this is where I should be in life at this time. Understand that the process of evolution and co-creation, if we break it down into time, takes time. And of course, it is all connected to our quantum field. So we begin to see that many people, as I could just relate it to a great awakening shift, they begin to get in a low vibrational state when things don't happen as they see it fit to be progressed. I want to be here at this point in my life, or why isn't this happening for me? But where I'm trying to take you is to just take you to the greater. If the sun, for example, and as we relate it to just, the earth spinning around it, had to release its energy and expected that the earth had to go around it in what we will call just one day, then, maybe things wouldn't be exactly how it is today. So as we begin to progress and see through, as I related it to, us being in the stage of going through that 4D dimensional frequency right now, where we're all expanding. As I say, everything is interconnected. You see, Saturn was very prevalent in allowing us to live in this, the Lord of Time, this 3D dimensional system for a long time. And now that Jupiter has stepped forward, and of course Uranus being in the mix and trying to help us to see from a wider perspective and for us to evolve, we begin to see that we are now so interconnected with the quantum field. Now, as I've mentioned many and many of times, astronomy and astrology is so vital and important to understanding where we're moving forward. Every shift, every transit that happens is not just to focus on little transits like every couple months, maybe 3 or 4 times a year we have Mercury going retrograde. It's to show us that within our Milky Way galaxy, in our understanding, now that we're going into higher states of consciousness, we ought to see that, wow, if this asteroid decides that, wow, it is moving forward and it's getting closer and closer into energy mass around us, and maybe that representation of that asteroid has to do with just shifting in relationships, or maybe this other planet, we could say, of course, we've seen that if you're studied astrology, you see that Uranus have been in Taurus for a while now, since 2018. And of course, some of the planets, when they shift, they take many years. And Uranus being a fast mover, this is a perfect example. Based on stability and to say that where we will continue to be. And we have just went into a great shift where, Pluto has gone into Aquarius, which if you study on an astrological level, you know that Pluto is the planet of death and transformation. And Aquarius, is the planet that is all about evolving and connecting us to our divine self and all about bringing back oneness into our universe. So as we begin to expand through a multi-galactic universe and connect to a multi-dimensional fields outside of us, we are seeing that we're going into an evolutionary state where we cannot continue to exist in limited time concepts. Who knows? Maybe time may no longer exist. We may go back into just being one in the quantum field, connecting us to, the sun, and maybe not having one particular measurement of quote unquote time. Just, based on our energy field and the mass and the motions of things. And now we're seeing that we're beginning to connect to higher states of consciousness and life itself outside of the earth. Now we know that scientific experimentation has all been about just trying to understand our outer universe, where we came from, who created us. There's this whole, discovery of, Scientology that pretty much wants to focus on the planetary alignments outside of our earth to just see how long we'll continue into existence, and even to denote that we have a creative source that created us, that we just sort of evolved on our own. But we are now being taken into future dimensions where we begin to see that we are now merging as one with the quantum field that exists around us, and time itself is the greatest illusion on earth. So what I want to just focus on and just enlighten you further on is that do not limit yourself to this 3D dimensional depiction of time. Yes, time is a great form of measurement, but just see that we're being taken into a frame where we are expanding and being able to connect deeper and deeper into the dimensions of all around it that goes through infinity, from fourth dimension, fifth, sixth, seventh, going into infinity. So don't let this limited illusion of time keep you in this lower dimensional 3D frequency. Continue to evolve and become one with this great quantum field that flows all around us as we begin to universally evolve in the greatest depiction of our evolutionary beingness within Earth and all around us. Continue to evolve